What's up, everybody? Welcome to the High Level Husband Podcast. I'm Tommy McCollister, once again joined by Dianne, my wife today. And what's always cool is I feel like these podcasts, I always feel like it's going to be the guests that come on here. But babe, I think you're the guest that everybody loves the most.
Well, they get to see the example of our lives itself.
Yeah, and to have the women's perspective, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's one thing when like the men speak it or I speak it, and they're like, yeah, but let me hear it out of the horse's mouth per se. Like, let me actually get the. That's such a weird statement, by
I'm
the
like, are
way.
you calling me a horse?
Kind of. Um, but no, but like it's kind of a weird statement. But we go into that. That's a rabbit hole. And so, guys, what we're going to talk about today is so many men do not think that what they do weighs that much into how their wife responds in so much. And they're like, yeah, well, of course, like I can't be an a-hole and I can't do certain things, can't be a drug addict or whatever else, but she's not going to follow. She's never going to submit. That's just on her. She needs to do her part.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot tell you the truth in this more than anything. One, and this isn't just me. I've witnessed it personally in my own life. So I have no theoretical, I've witnessed it. Two, I've watched it happen in countless other marriages. So three, it's not just us. Or two, it's not just us. And three, it's 100% biblical.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Bible, all the Bible is, besides just being the most greatest thing ever, is it's a book of templates that if you follow these templates to a T, it will go well. And so so earlier today we were like, all right, let's bullet point like how we're going to talk about this. And God just started opening our minds, babe.
Yeah.
And I was praying. I said, all right, babe, let's pray. I grabbed your hand and we were praying. And then I got done praying. I go, oh God, I said, babe, during that prayer, I got a vision. And then you go, I got a vision,
It was the same vision. As soon as you grabbed my hands, it was like, I got the same vision.
which I mean, just kind of just dive into that just for just a second of like what that vision was.
Yeah, really the Bible is the blueprint. It truly shows us that how we are supposed to live our lives, how the man is supposed to lead, how we're supposed to love like Christ loved the church. I mean, it's a complete blueprint.
Exactly. And so, guys, we're going to bullet points. We're going to get through this and we're going to start ripping. So, I have my notes out because I want to really make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
And there's some Bible verses that I'm going to use to this. So, whether you're a believer or not, these templates are fully foolproof, 100% foolproof. If
Absolutely.
you do these to a T, whether you're a believer or not. Now, if you're listening to this, chances are you're a believer because you know I move in the spirit and I've been of the world. Diane's been of the world. We've both been super sinful people. And guess what? It brought no happiness other than the momentarily, like during the moment. And even then, it's not all that great.
Mm-hmm.
What it's cracked up to be, I'm telling you, there's moments of our days right now that it's just like, I can't believe this feels this way. So that's a whole nother story. So, anyways, guys, so for the guys saying, my wife will not submit, let's just do this. Let's go to the verse where it talks about wives submitting to the husbands. And so that's Ephesians 5:22 through verse 33. I'm going to break this down in a couple different multiple layers of how to do this for you guys. So the verse starts with says, wives, submit to your husbands as you submit to the Lord. So the key words in that are as
As
you
you submit to the Lord.
right. And so that's the cool part about this is she must submit to the Lord first before she'll be submissive to you. Now, can secular people do this and different things like that? Yes, it can look specific ways, right? But they're still using the biblical template,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's in this. So it says, as you must submit to the Lord. So they must submit to the Lord. That means for them to submit to the Lord, they need to love the Lord. We're not submitting to anybody. You're not submitting to me unless you absolutely love me and trust me and all of that. We're not submitting to the Lord unless we love him, right? We understand that he actually did this. We believe in him and his ways and his words are true, right? And so it says the wives must do that as they submit to the Lord. So the key words is that they submit. But if they do not submit to the Lord, good luck on them submitting to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? We watch this in our own marriage. And we've talked about this so much. And I always throw Diane under the bus a little bit because I like to use it as an example, but it was because of me. It's 100% her ways were because of my fault.
Absolutely.
So you were never submissive to me. I think you would say yes to certain things for many years, because out of like frustration or just like, well, whatever, or I would convince you. I'm a decently convincing person at times. Um, but I would convince you or whatever, and then I could just see like, fine, whatever. I remember there's so many times you would say, well, fine, whatever, just do it. And in that tone of voice like that, well, now that's not you doing it because you're like, that's awesome. You're like, dude, just freaking do it, whatever. I don't care. Like you're frustrated.
Right.
And so,
And this was years ago, people.
well, it was. I would probably say, well, it depends on when you're going to listen to this, but 5 years ago,
Mhm.
maybe even a little bit before that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But definitely a long time of that. But you were not following the Lord at that time. You would go to church, but that's absolutely where it stopped.
Yeah, and it was bare minimum at church either. It's like half the time my mind wasn't even where it was supposed to be
Right.
at that time.
So you weren't submitting to the Lord because of that, right? So
Hmm.
keywords, they must submit to the Lord. And if they're not, then they're not followers. And they are not followers is on us as men, right? So if our wives don't know the Lord, that is because of us as men. We are not showing the fruit in our lives for them to do this. And stay with me because I'm about to get even really, really deep into this and break down a ton of stuff. So they're not submitting to us because we're not showing the fruit. Jesus says, you will know my people by their fruit,
Hmm.
right? If we're not showing others that there's a benefit of following Christ, and it's not just about like, well, I'm going to follow Christ because I'm going to get all of this out of this. No, I'm going to follow Christ because he died on the cross for my sins. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to freaking burn in hell. Like life is tough enough on earth at times for whatever, let's say we live for 80 years. Dude, eternity is going to be of hell is going to be eternity. No hope, no nothing. You can't get out. You're done for.
I think I'd rather be in heaven.
Right. So it's we need to be doing these things and submitting to him and doing all of those stuff on us. So it's up to us to show that fruit, right? If we're not joyful. And so I'm about to get into what that fruit looks like. So hold on with me for a second. But Adam in the Bible was the very first person who did this wrong. He knew the rules. God told him the rules of the garden and things like this. And they were living this amazing life. But he didn't properly convey it to his wife of what the rules were. So then when she ate the apple, what happened? She offered it to him. But
Hmm.
he said he stood by as she did this. He didn't slap the apple out of her hand. He didn't say you shouldn't do this. He didn't choke the snake. He didn't do any of that.
He did not lead by example.
Stood and watched.
Yeah.
So want a passive, docile man and just says, well, she has her own free will. She can do what she wants. No, you're the leader. And as a strong leader, you're not going to let your family go into danger. If you see your wife standing in the middle of traffic and a car is coming, you're going to run and you're going to push her out of the way and you're going to be willing to take that hit of the car. Same thing for our kids or anybody else, because the Bible talks about it later on. There's nothing greater in life than to die for a brother, a friend, let alone your wife or your kids,
Hmm.
right? So Adam should have done that as the leader, number one. Number two, then he eats it himself. So now he's letting her negative patterns impact him
Right.
and getting their relationship to where it's at. Well, she's doing this, and well, I guess I'll do it too. So then you're the sum of the five closest people in your life. You're the sum of your wife. Your marriage is just a direct reflection of you. So then God comes afterwards and says, Adam, what's the deal, man? And I always talk to Adam, making God in a certain different tone, but and Adam says, well, she made me do it. But God didn't come and ask Eve first. He asked Adam. He knew Eve ate it, and he knew she was tempted by the snake. But God also knew Adam stood by and didn't properly portray the communication of that, and wasn't doing leadership, and said, you're the man.
Because it's on him.
You
It
did not
was
stop your wife
it was on him.
from doing that.
Hmm.
You at least could have said no after she had already ate it.
Hmm.
Worst case scenario, you say no. But you didn't. So that's why he came to Adam first. So, as men, we, though, here's the problem, where it says the wives must submit to the Lord in first in Ephesians. We must be submissive to the Lord. We must be that person that's submissive to the Lord. If you want your wife to submit to you, you need to submit to the Lord. Are you being submissive to the Lord? There's a stat out there, and I think it's 80 something percent. I think it's 83%. It might be in the 70s, but I think it's 83. percent of children will follow the Lord or become at least a believer if the male of the household is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The stat is 20 something percent if it's only the woman, if it's only the wife, because it's out of order. So we must be submissive to the Lord first. If we're going to submit to the Lord, then our wives can submit to the Lord because we're going to show the fruit. That means you must submit to the Lord. That doesn't mean you go to church on Sundays or you got baptized one time and so now you're just good for life. And hey man, like I'm a good person. That don't mean nothing, bro. That don't mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Even Bible even says even the evil people of this world love the other evil people of this world. So cool, they're somewhat good people because they're loving on somebody else. Cool, bro. No, the Jesus said if when there's one time somebody came to him, they said, "Hey man, your mother and brothers are outside," and Jesus said, "My mother and brothers are those who hear the word of God and put it into practice." That means it does what it says.
Right.
It does what it all says. It doesn't say you get to pick and choose. Well, I like the part where Jesus died on the cross for me. I like the part where it says he gives me grace when I sin. I like the part where it says my wife better submit to me. I like all of that. But the part where it says like, you shouldn't be getting drunk and that you need to tithe and you need to be in Sabbathing. You need to be doing all these other things and dying to self and serving. I don't know, man. That seems kind of Old Testament-ish. So here's the problem.
Yeah.
You're not submit. I submit to the Lord. I
In
have
all
to.
of those things, every single one of those things that you just listed, that's submitting to the Lord. Your wife is not going to follow you until you do all of those things and show that.
Right. My dad led as a kid and he said, "Don't do as I do as I say."
Right.
So do you think your wife's going to submit to the Lord when you're not submitting to the Lord? No, she's going to be a direct reflection. Why is her heart not changing? Because you take her to church maybe once a month. Other time you might watch on church online once a month, but then during that time you're drinking coffee, you're texting other your friends, maybe you're checking to the score of the game, the kids are crying, all these other things. You're distracted. Well, I can't tithe because money's been really tight lately, or I'll tithe when I'm like really secure and then I'll make up for it. And like, no.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not showing the fruit. So they're not showing the fruit. You're not leading by example. Well, the kids have games on Sundays, and so we got to be at the games. Oh, so
What's more important, the kids going to their games or you being able to follow Christ as you're supposed to be?
yeah, you're saying then my kingdom is more important than the Father's kingdom. When
Right.
the apostles asked Jesus how to pray, he said, here's how you do it. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So your name, your kingdom come, your will be done, is what Jesus says to tell them to pray. This is what you have to pray.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus doesn't have to pray because at the end it talks about forgive us for our sins. Jesus wasn't a sinner, so he don't have to ask for repentance. But
Right.
at the beginning, he says, your kingdom come. And so if we're asking for God's kingdom to come, a kingdom is him ruling us. He's in charge of us. Just as if we live in a kingdom nation, it's the queens and the kings, everything is all theirs. They'll protect us, but everything is theirs. If they want it, we give it to them. Their face is on the money because it's theirs. Right? So are we doing what it actually says? Are we actually submitting? Then yes, she will give him a chance. Chances are you're not really doing that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you could go through the motions, but here's the things. Here's what it looks like to actually be a follower. One, you have to do like the 9 main things that it does, and I'll just kind of rip through them real quick. You've heard me talk about them before. It's being in the Word daily, being in a community of other, for men, this will be other men weekly. It'll be tithing. It will be solitude. It'll be prayer. It'll be fasting. It'll be Sabbath. It'll be works. And yeah, I mean, there's 9 of them. I guess I can't remember the last one off the top
I
of my
can't remember either.
head. Anyways, so there's 9 of them, right? So if you're doing those things consistently, not picking and choosing, well, I'll do this 2 this week, and the next week I'll do those 3, and then next month I'll do 4. No,
Yeah.
that's not doing it. It's all, right? There's a process for it to work. You can't
Mm-hmm.
build a car by not doing the steps properly. You do all the steps. Nextly, what does it look like if you are actually doing these things? First Corinthians tells us what love actually is. And it says you will not fail with your wife basically in life, and if your wife to submit if you do these. And it ends with you. Love does not fail. It does not fail. So check this out. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It keeps going. But check this out. I want you to look up 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8. And I want you to do this right here. I want you to replace your name with love. So it goes like this. And ask if it's true. So for me, I'll put my name there. Tommy is patient. Tommy is kind. Tommy does not envy. Tommy does not boast. Tommy is not proud. Tommy does not dishonor others. Tommy is not self-seeking. Tommy is not easily angered. Tommy keeps no record of wrongs. Tommy does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. Tommy always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Tommy never fails. That's what love is.
And that is how you live your life.
I mean, I got some things I got to clean up.
As we all do.
But I really feel like I'm really good at a lot of this, and I'm not always having it. I'm working my butt off. But that's why you submit, guys. And I know I'm going on this because I wrote this, and so Diane's going to jump in here in just a second. But I really want you to touch on this. Are you always patient? Like you're not tripping out on patience for what life's giving you and not on your own terms? Like God's taking time on that?
You're not snapping at your kids. You're not snapping at your wife. Are you having patience? Are you flipping people off when they cut you off? Or,
right.
You know,
are you kind and just loving on your wife and
right.
your kids all the time? It's not saying, well, yeah, I mean, I am sometimes, man, but she's so disrespectful to me, man. It's like, bro, you don't get it.
Because you're not leading her.
Then you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
Because it also says in there, turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
Offer the other cheek when you get hit on one. Are you doing that? Well, you know, it's like, no, bro, you're not understanding.
To show how it's done.
He doesn't envy, right? Well, other people get sex all the time, babe. They're having it all the time. Why aren't we having it all the time? Right? It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It's not. So that means he doesn't think he's better than his spouse. Well, I'm doing this and you're not doing this. So that's what his meaning is, like he's not better because you're completely different than me.
Absolutely.
You don't do what I do. I don't do what you do.
Right.
But men want to be like, yo, why aren't you doing what I'm doing? Why aren't you doing this? So-and-so. Because God made us all uniquely different and chosen and specifics, and not all women are the same, let alone women and men are totally different. But then you break it down to microcosms. Women are completely different than each other. Us men are completely different than each other. But we're supposed to all follow this, right? But it starts with the man doing this if we're going to let the women do this. It does not dishonor others, so it doesn't put people down when they say something to you. Do you put them down and be like, you're stupid, you're a fool? No. Because the Bible also talks about judging. We can judge if they're doing something negative. We just don't get to call them a name on top of it.
Right.
That's when it says you're susceptible to the fires of hell. So we don't dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. Well, what's in it for me, man? I'm going to mop the floors and I'm going to get her this and I'm going to do this because so she can just drop them pennies at night from me, man. Like I'm trying to do all of this. It's self-seeking. It's not easily angered, right? So it's like, man, things didn't go my way. I didn't get it tonight. No worries, babe. Like I love you. Like it's all good. I know you've had a long day, but no big deal. Or you're just doing all these other things. Or if she's impatient and all those things, hey, babe, let me handle this. I got this. Nobody, you're staying calm. You're the thermostat lowering the temperature of the room. It keeps no record of wrongs. Well, you remember when you did this?
Oh, yeah.
How about in the past you did this?
How many people keep a scorecard for their spouse and they bring it up every time there's a frustration? They go down the line.
Every single time. And then they bring it back. So it keeps no records of wrong. It does not delight in evil, so it doesn't get caught up in negativity. Well, Biden sucks and Kamala Harris sucks. Yes, I agree. But guess what? I don't get caught up in that BS because I don't get caught up in evil and things like that. I rejoice in the truth. I seek love. I seek loving on other people. I'm trying to do all that because that's what fills up my cup. Talking crap about other people doesn't fill up my cup. Or getting stuck in watching news and negativity or watching all of that stuff. No, that's why one of the things we have you do in our program is remove that from your life. So I rejoice in the truth. This isn't easy to do, but that's rejoicing in the truth. It always protects. So being a provider in a marriage isn't just about working hard. I've said this before. If working hard was the thing, then Pablo Escobar would be the poster child.
Yeah.
If earning money and working hard was what actually meant being a provider, then Pablo Escobar would be the poster child of that. No. Guess what? He's not. Protects and providers, providing security emotionally and financially. So that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritually, providing them a spiritual leadership,
Guidance, yeah.
providing playfulness, providing in multiple different aspects of things for them. It's not just the working hard. You're missing the boat if you think that that's what it
It's
is.
not just the money.
It's one part.
Yeah.
It always trusts that God has a plan for your life, right? And you're going to work out for the best. It always hopes. But how do we get to hope? In the Bible, it says, rejoice in your sufferings. For sufferings lead to perseverance, perseverance, character, and character leads to hope.
Hope.
So it always hopes. So that means if you circle back, it's done the character things. It's been through perseverance, which isn't easy. And it's been rejoicing in its sufferings. Are you rejoicing in your sufferings? If the answer is no, then you're not leading to perseverance. Then you're not growing in character. And then you're not having hope. So you're missing this mark. Your character's not changing. And it always perseveres, right? So love never fails. If you do this, it won't fail.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're pointing your finger at your wife and you're saying she won't follow me, ask yourself, bro, you doing all of this to a T?
Chances are you're most likely not.
No.
Most people aren't.
And if you are, dude, you don't even care what your spouse is doing, because guess what? You are so close to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You understand he created you for a mission, and your mission isn't to just be a husband and a father and to win a fantasy football league. That's parts of it. You know what's the main means is he has a whole purpose for you to be a disciple maker and use your gifts and talents, because your gifts and talents are so unique and special just for you that you're a huge piece of this puzzle and the cog, so you can go out and do things. And that's what's bigger than marriage and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you need sex to fill your cup, because you're not living in your purpose and doing that all to the fullest, serving the Lord to the full. So you need this to fill your cup, but you need to keep doing it every single day. Brandon Lake talked about this on a podcast recently, and Brandon Lake's one of the top worship leaders in the country.
Yeah.
He was saying, I got to a spot where I was needing to have sex on an uncomfortable amount with my wife, and she started pointing it out, not in like a negative way, but he was saying, she's like, babe, like, I love making love with you, but this is getting a little excessive here. And he started realizing he was trying to fill his cup with that because he was struggling with anxiety in other areas of his life, and he needed to deal with those. Sometimes we get the eye off the prize, and so we're not always perfect.
Yeah.
But you correct and you get back, which is perseverance, which brings it back into place, and
Yeah.
so that's what it does. And so,
And if you're really doing all of those things that Tommy just listed out, all of that list of things, yet you're wondering why your wife isn't following it, you're missing the first one. You're not being patient, because it will take time for her to follow your lead.
well, exactly, so the Lord's just breaking down so much in the Bible for me. I'm in the Word every single day. Every single day. I do not miss a day. I don't care if I'm tired, sick, anything. I do not miss a day. You do not miss a day.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, in most time, it's multiple times a day.
100% multiple times a day.
Yeah.
But I have a specific study time.
Yeah.
And that's every single night right before I go to bed. That's different for everybody, but this is what works best for me. And it was talking about Zechariah, and Zechariah is Elizabeth's husband, and they were the parents of John the Baptist. Well, it said they were people who just followed God so closely and did his commands and so closely, but she was barren. And in their old age, she was to conceive a child. In their old age, which means that for their whole life, they weren't able to do the one thing that I guarantee they wanted, which was a child, the thing they had been praying for, working for, but they were still doing the commands. But it took so long. God still blessed him. Not only did he bless him, he gave him John the Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just another awesome child as we're all chosen. He gave him John the Baptist in their old age. So they were patient for that long.
I was just going to say that.
Patient for that long. It didn't say they followed his commands until it didn't seem to work anymore, and he didn't give them a kid, and then they stopped.
Yeah.
Because God never came through with the kid.
Right.
They stayed the course, and what didn't seem realistic, it happened. Guys, this is not 3 months. This is not 6 months. This is not 6 years. It might be 60 years. It might be 6 days. But there will be growth along the way as long as you're doing this. It never ends. Mm-hmm. Jesus talks about this in John 15 about the pruning process. Pruning is painful.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Absolutely.
But it will happen. It's going to be different for everybody. But you know why it takes long? Is because typically you've dug yourself such a big hole, both of you have dug such a hole for years to fill that hole back in and get it to switch back to the other way. It takes a while.
Mhm.
It takes time. Not just because one day you tell her you're sorry,
Yeah.
or one day you go to church, or one day you read the Bible, or one day you go to the gym. No, it takes time. The same way if you're 400 pounds, it's going to take time for you to get down to a buck 80. And that's good because that's the perseverance and developing of character during that time that's so important. Guys, we're going to run out of time here. So I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying. But there's so many celebrities in this world who you've just seen have a terrible reputation, but over years have switched it. You know, the one that comes to mind for me is one that I love is Mike Tyson. I love fighting, but Mike Tyson was the baddest dude, right? Like in the 80s,
Mhm.
early 90s, he was just smashing fools. But he was like a terrible person. That dude was like, if you read his autobiography, the things he was doing, one, just being a drug addict, two, was sleeping with an insane amount of women, doing terrible, terrible things, right? He was like just robbing people, all those other things throughout his whole life. And then he got the face tattoo. He bit off Evander Holyfield's ear. He goes to prison. I think it was he still to this day says he didn't actually rape that person, and I believe him because what the point at that point he already served his time, you know, and he's already turned his character around. Why not just say what happened? I believe him. But so he did all these terrible things, but now Mike's like the most loving person. He's like the most lovable teddy bear out there. He changed his reputation. We can all change our reputation, but it takes time. So your
Mhm.
wife needs to see you different over time for you to get to that spot. You have not been consistent enough doing this. Look, wives will submit to your husband when she submits, but she won't submit to the Lord if she's not doing that. Well, then you need to be leading the way and submitting to the Lord, fully trusting and doing all of these things. And if you've been doing that for a long time and staying the course and doing what First Corinthians 13 talks about, being all of those things, and you're doing that consistently, she will see you differently. But just because you're doing those 9 things and your heart's not changing,
Right.
and you're not doing what that says, she's not going to follow because she's going to see you as the same person. You need to show the fruit in your life. In the end of that verse, babe, and you really pointed this out, it was so good. It's still in it's in Ephesians 5, and it starts at 25. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. That's what follows. Wives must submit to their husband, because after she must submit as she submits to your husbands as she submits to the Lord, it goes into submitting to your husband. But it follows with how that's going to happen. Husbands, love your wives like Christ loves the church and gave himself up for her. That means
Mhm.
he was dying to his ways.
Right.
Watch, it keeps going. To make her holy and cleansing her by washing her through the word. That means washing her through the word. She gets to know the Lord. How does she know the Lord? Because you're praying over her. You're being a spiritual leader in those areas. To present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, or but holy and blameless. So she's changing now because you've changed and are showing those examples. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and take care for the body just as Christ does the church. Hence, they're saying, take care of your temple, make sure you're physically fit, eating good, working out, taking care of your temple, and making sure you're feeding your brain and your spirit with the knowledge of Christ and the personal development stuff. Taking care of that. Are you? Like, come on now. This is what it's saying. After all, no, so for we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and two will become one flesh. He leaves his father and mother. That means he puts his wife as number one.
Mhm.
That means he dies to things he loves the most and becomes one with his with his wife, and she becomes his number one. They become one. This is a found mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. As But each one of you must, keyword, must love his wife as he loves himself. We've said this for so long. Our whole coaching program is based off when Jesus says, because this is Paul, Jesus says, love your neighbor as
Yourself,
yourself.
yeah.
Key word is as you love yourself. If you do not love yourself, you cannot love others very much. Doesn't mean you don't love them, but you only have so much to give.
And your spouse isn't necessarily going to follow and love you like she could if you're not loving yourself either.
Absolutely. Dude, I was on interviewed on a marriage summit this week, and I was saying, what's the biggest difference how your kids see you now than before? Was like I spent a lot of time with them before, but I wasn't the dad that I'm now. I was present. I spent a ton of time with them. I was at their games. I coached their teams. I did all of that stuff. Guess what? That was not the dad that I am now. Full of
Mm-hmm.
joy, full of life, encouragement, all of this stuff, laughing, joking, peace, self-discipline, looking across the board, leading by example. No, but I still spent time with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now they follow. They're such the most obedient kids. We don't have to ask twice. They just go and do it.
Yeah. And if you ask both of our kids, they say, we notice a huge difference in both of you.
And it's from doing this
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Guys, but as he loves himself.
Yeah. If you're not loving yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not showing all of that to yourself, to everybody around you, if you're not showing that to your wife, why would she ever respect and follow you? You have to do those things. Then she will follow you. But if you're not doing those things, it's not going to happen.
When
You
you look
want-
in the mirror,
yeah.
do you go, dude, I just freaking love who I am? Like I'm physically
In
fit.
all ways.
I'm dude, I just like the most loving person. I lay my head at the end of the pillow at the end of the day and be like, dude, I just loved on everybody today so much, and I did this for others.
Mm-hmm. And I was patient with my kids and respectful of them and my wife and
Did what First Corinthians says, like.
all of those.
But when you lay your
Yeah.
health stuff at the end of the night, most people feel bad because like I didn't get sex, I didn't make more money today, I got rejected by this person was mean. It was all about me,
Yeah,
me.
here's what I didn't get, right?
My needs weren't met.
Yeah.
It's all about my needs, me. Scroll back up where it says in First Corinthians, it is not self-seeking. That's what love is. So you don't love yourself if you're self-seeking. It's like when you do all that other stuff, it's weird how you just love yourself more. You take care of all of this for other people.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm living on my purpose. I'm just doing all this stuff. I'm doing everything that I say. It's like, man, no. Like, do you really, really love yourself? If you're masturbating, you don't. If you're getting drunk, you don't. If you're doing all that other stuff, if you don't. If you're yelling at your wife, you don't. If you're being snappy with the kids, you don't. If you're an a-hole to other people, you don't. If you're doing all of that stuff, you don't. So how are you going to have your wife respect her husband? It says he must love his wife as he loves himself. If you don't love yourself, you're not doing that. And the wife must respect her husband. But that's after, it comes after him loving himself.
Exactly. 100%.
Dude, I've yet to talk to somebody that loves themselves fully and their wife is not. And doing it the First Corinthians way, and their wife is just not eating out of the palm of their hand.
Right. Because, I mean, if you ask most people, they're like, yeah, I like myself, whatever. But that's just like on the general surface, but they're not actually doing those things. They're just like, oh, I like myself. I love myself, but
you would have to ask yourself, would I trade my life for somebody else's?
Right.
And I'm not saying the needs.
And
I'm
you
saying
don't really
like the
love
character
yourself
traits.
until you're doing,
Would you rather have the rocks body? Would you rather have the love of like maybe your favorite pastor and the wisdom of this? Like, no, you're uniquely you. Cultivate you who God created you to be. It does not envy. Love does not envy. You create and cultivate this who is. You're still just an infancy of what is possible. And if you're not becoming 1% better every single day, you are dying. You're either growing or you're dying. There is no middle ground. That's why Jesus says, if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. That's why the parable of the talents, the last one, kept it the same, and God took away his talent and gave it to somebody else. Man, it's not fair that this person has more than me. Why? God says, I'll take what you have and I'll give it to somebody else who is actually winning. So he's taking that from you. Your marriage is getting taken from you because you're not stewarding his daughter. Bro, step it up. And I'm saying this because that was not me. And you're saying this because you're pointing fingers at them when you need to take those fingers, you need to point it at yourself and say, it's on me.
And you can only say that with authority because you used to be a different person. You had to go through all that and learn that in order to be able to say that.
And God put me on here for this reason.
And have me be able to follow you eventually.
Yeah. Guys, if you're pointing your fingers at your wife, I promise you, you will never, ever, ever, ever have a good marriage.
Mm-mm.
Tom Brady won 7 championships with mediocre players because he was the guy that they would follow. He set the standard so high, I guess guaranteed they weren't going out partying on Saturday night before the game. They were in the off season killing it. They were doing that. They all wanted to come play with him and take a lower contract with less money to play with Tom Brady because Tom Brady set the standard and they wanted to be a winner. Do you not think your wife in that same scenario in the marriage wants to play with a winner? Are you that winner? Like, let's be real. She'll follow somebody. If she's really into fashion, there's somebody in fashion that she looks up to and just would want to follow, learn their ways, do all of that, be in the room with them and just spend time with them and do all of that. Yeah. You have that with somebody in this life as well, whether that's in business, whether that's in fitness, whether that's in something, sports, something you would love to just spend that time with them.
So be that person for yourself, be that person for your wife.
Exactly. Everybody will follow somebody and is following somebody. It's just the wrong people. You can be that. And because she's still there and had one time chose to be that, you just got to take that small little ember and turn it into a flame. Let's go. And so there's so many more things we could touch on. We're out of time. We got to go. But I love you guys. And what I want to say when I get bold like this, I truly, truly just want the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a guy who recently joined our program. And he commented on a post I put out in our community, and the brothers in there just love each other. He said, "Man, I've only been in this community for I think like a week or so at the time." And he said, "I've got a long ways to go, but one thing I know is so true is that you truly just have a heart for the Lord and just want to love on God's people," basically is what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's evident and clear.
And that's true. You do.
It's all I want.
Yeah.
And so this is all I want for you guys. If you guys want to join our coaching program, you go, there's a resource down below. I'm going to put in the notes here. Watch that, book a call at the end of that and talk about what that looks like. If you just want to listen to the podcast, what really, really means a lot to us, I promise you guys, we put a lot of time and effort into this, is to just rate it 5 stars. It means a ton. I can't tell you how much it actually grows this.
Yeah.
And then we can, keep pushing and doing all this other stuff. And so it really means a lot to us, guys. Just a quick moment out of your day really fills us up, and that's you loving on us. So we truly love you guys. God bless y'all.